Welcome to In the Margins, where we spark connection through stories. I'm your host, Laura Lynn Donahue, and each week I invite guests to step outside the lines and into the margins with me. You'll hear the untold stories, the stories of risk and reward, of triumph and trial, and everything in between. Thanks for joining me. Let's dive in. Welcome to In the Margins. I'm Laura Lynn Donahue, your host, and we are live at the Military Influencer Conference, also known as MIC. It's in Atlanta this year, and we are sitting out on the patio, so we welcome any noises like the helicopter circling around, the wind blowing through the breeze, but most importantly, we welcome Tauni Crefeld.
Hello, I'm
Hi.
happy to be here.
Thank you so much for being here. Tauni's got two books. One just recently introduced in February of this year, and that's The Fixer. And then she just released another one, and it's called
Own Your Path.
Own Your Path.
And
yes.
it's a career guide for women who are trying to navigate especially the corporate career field and how to navigate all of the pitfalls that are out there for women.
Yeah. Well, so tell us, just so the listeners have some context, give us a little bit of your background.
So I went to the Air Force Academy, and then I joined the military, which is why we're here at the Military Influencers Conference.
Right.
I was in the military as a security policeman or military police for 5 years. And I say that because that leadership experience, both at the Academy and in the Air Force, really informed kind of my leadership style, which for me was very directly applicable to kind of how I led in the corporate world. Following my military years, I was a technology consultant at one of the major consulting firms. And I did that for almost 25 years and led a lot of teams building software. In the latter half of my career, I was the person they called in when teams got messy. And I had to fix the teams, which is where the book, The Fixer, comes from, my experience in fixing all those teams.
Okay, great. So just out of curiosity, and for those of us who are civilians, what does the military police involve?
So the military police has three main functions. Number one, it is guarding our military assets like airplanes or nuclear weapons. Number two, it's guarding the base itself to make sure the base is secure for all the people that live within it. And then number three, it's law enforcement. So speeding or other kinds of normal law enforcement type activities. And the mission changes a little bit depending on where we were. Sure. Like obviously in a place like Korea where there's tensions with North Korea, there's more focus on guarding the base, but it depends on, a little bit where, what assets are to be guarded.
Yeah. The context and situation.
Yeah.
Okay. At any point, are you just on the ground as you're acting as police, or are you also airborne as police?
Great question. I've never been asked that question. It is primarily on the ground.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just like to have a good visual of where you are.
I love it. I never have been asked that before.
Well, so you went into the corporate world as the fixer, hence the name of the book, right?
Yes.
So when I think of the fixer, I'm thinking about drama TV.
Yes.
And the fixer has a much different role.
Yes. Yes, I was not...
You're not the cleaner.
I was not an axeman or anything like that. But I would walk into a team of anywhere from 40 to 200 people. And the first thing I would do is look around, and they were messy teams, meaning we weren't delivering on the commitments to the clients. We were building a piece of software and we were late, or the client wasn't happy with what we were building, whatever the reason. So the first thing I would have to do is just figure out what was going wrong. Sometimes the clients weren't clear with what they needed. Sometimes we had the wrong people in the wrong roles. Sometimes there was politics that was causing internal conflict. Whatever it was, I had to find those root causes, resolve those root causes, get people working together as a team, create a good team dynamic, and get, the software that the client wanted done. So,
right.
I really want to build good, healthy teams. Mm-hmm. The subtitle of the book is Forging Unstoppable Teams. And to me, that's really what it's all about. Yeah. The Fixer is a great catchy title, and I did fix teams, but to me, the root of it is really forging unstoppable teams.
Gotcha. And where does communication within the team rank as in importance?
Oh gosh, I built guiding principles for all of my teams, and that's probably, it's not number one, it's probably number three.
Okay.
My number one guiding principle is always no blame, just solutions. Because whenever there's a problem, a messy team like that, people are always blaming each other. And the first thing you got to do is stop the blame, focus on the solutions. And then, communications is definitely one of the next ones. But to me, the biggest thing you got to do is just is stop the blame so that you can focus on moving in the right direction.
Yeah. Okay. And so from the fixer, you moved into the next book.
Yeah. So when I first started writing books, I just had a story in my mind, which was a women's mentoring event that I went to at the Air Force Academy, which was atrocious, by the way.
Oh gosh.
And so I needed to write it down. And I had a couple of other stories about women's mentoring and challenges for women. But I really decided that I had a lot of other great leadership stories that were not women specific. And I really wanted to write those down first. So I focused on the fixer first, but then I had all of these other stories that I really felt like women who are navigating their careers needed to know. Because I learned everything the hard way, I feel like. I missed this promotion because I didn't market myself, and there's biases and assumptions, and women we're not as good at marketing ourselves. Right. And so I wanted to focus on, helping women navigate their career and really focus on solutions. I'm not going to blame the world. The world is the world.
Yeah.
But let's find the solutions on how women can overcome the problems and get forward in their careers.
Yeah. So tell us what was atrocious about the conference you attended.
Oh my gosh. So I was a first year at the academy, had only been there a few weeks. It might have still been in basic training. And a female officer offered to do a women's mentoring session. And I was so excited because I hadn't even seen a female officer. And so there was only about, maybe 10 to 20 of us female cadets in this one, squadron that met with her. And I was like, okay, good. She's going to tell us all about leadership and how to work with men in this very male dominated society. The military was then, and I think probably still now, about 20% women. And so she sat us down and she says, okay, if you wear makeup, you have to have very conservative makeup. And I said, I'm sorry, we're talking about makeup? Yeah. And then she went on to hairstyles. And I was like, I'm sorry, are we talking about grooming standards? Because I thought we were supposed to talk about leadership. But the subtext of everything that she was saying was appear less female. Don't appear to be a woman. She started talking about some of the harassment she'd faced in the military, which sounds just, some really awful examples. And that was what this leadership discussion was, how not to look like a female and what harassment to expect.
Because how you look determined whether or not you would be harassed.
When I graduated and I went out to the real Air Force, I was 21. I was wearing battle dress uniforms. I had my hair back in a tight braid. I wasn't wearing makeup, even though it was a terrible session. I did listen to her, but I'm still a female. I'm still clearly a female.
Right.
And no amount of not wearing makeup is going to hide that fact.
Right.
And, when I first stepped into my first role, I was Grand Forks Air Force Base in North Dakota. My commander pulled me into a room and had a father-daughter chat with me. And he said 2 points. Number one, are you strong enough to carry your weapon? Which was number one. I'd gone through all the same training the men had, obstacle courses, assault courses, all of the running in formation, and I'd been an intercollegiate gymnast. I could carry my weapon.
Yeah.
And number two, he said, don't date the troops, meaning as an officer, I should not date the enlisted people, which is true, and which I never would have.
Right.
They didn't pull the men into a room to have any kind of a chat like that. They assumed the men would be fine and would be, but they had to pull into a room and, they assumed that I would be sort of not good until I proved myself, where the men, they just assumed they would be fine.
Yeah. So it's interesting how a patriarchal society wants us women to blend in so that we're not a distraction or so that we're not a temptation, as though it's our fault. You face that in a lot of situations, and the military, I'm sure, is one maybe of the more difficult situations to be in, just as far as someone trying to suppress your womanhood.
You know, I think the one thing I learned about the military, at least the military, they were in your face about it. You knew you were being discriminated against.
Gotcha.
And that was actually, you learned how to navigate it. You learned how to deal with it. You knew you were being discriminated against, and you just had to learn to overcome and prove your capabilities.
Yeah.
I think when I moved into the civilian world, it felt so much more supportive, and I never got pulled into rooms and asked if I could carry my laptop, which is good. But I found out that the same discrimination was there. It was just subtle, and it was hidden. And I'm not a subtle person.
Yeah.
And so it took me a long time to find it and
Passive
understand
aggressive.
it. I think it's unconscious, not even passive aggressive.
Yeah,
I think it's just a lot of times it's unconscious.
Yeah.
And, you know, the women don't know it's there. The men don't know it's there. But we all have biases based on how we've grown up. Yeah. And I think that's what this Own Your Path is about. It's trying to uncover some of those hidden biases and challenges and help, you know, kind of women open their eyes to them so that they can hopefully overcome them.
And so Own Your Path, it translates to the civilian as well.
It's primarily focused on the civilian world. Yeah. It's informed by a lot of my military leadership and all that. But Own Your Path is primarily focused on women in the corporate world.
Yeah.
I was 25 years in corporate consulting. And so that's really probably where it is more focused on. Yeah.
So what would you say are maybe your top 2 or 3 gems in the book that you would be willing to share to maybe interest people in reading both of your books?
So I would say, number 1, you have to have the right role to be promoted. I think there's an underlying assumption that women especially have that, well, if I do a good job for my boss will take care of me. But they could be in a role that is primarily administrative or that is in a kind of a support role. And while the boss loves their work, loves what they're doing, and really values them, if they're not doing something that is, you know, driving the revenue for the company or really in the core business of the company, they're never going to get promoted. They may get promoted to the first couple of levels, but they're never going to make it to executive if they aren't in the right role. And I have got lots and lots of description of what the right role is and what the wrong roles are. But I think we women, especially, we just sort of believe that our boss will do the right thing for us. And it's just not always true. And not because they're bad people. They have a job to do.
Right.
And we're one of the players on their team. And so they're just trying to get the work done. And the more we allow ourselves to be doing a great job, valued for that job, but not rewarded and promoted for the work we're doing, we do it to ourselves because we focus on the job and not on our careers as much as the men do. The men are very focused on trying to move forward.
Yeah.
Typically, not everyone, but typically.
And where does self-advocacy play a role in that?
Yeah, so I outline a couple of different steps in my book, the Own Your Path. The first is find a sponsor, because I think finding a sponsor, someone who can be a guide on the path and really help you on the journey, is critical. And so it's find a sponsor, get the right role. Once you do those things, you're kind of at the same position that many men are in their careers. But then it's all of the, understand expectations of the role. Because sometimes, again, if you don't know what your boss is expecting of you and you're just working hard, at the end of the year, the boss may say, well, you didn't live up to my expectations. And they maybe didn't tell you. And if you don't understand what those expectations are, you may be falling behind. So it's understand the expectations of the role. And then there's all the visibility, the marketing yourself, the networking, all of those kinds of things, which we don't do as much of. Right. And then there's all the, negotiating for rewards and recognition. And there is an active role in that. It's not just, I did a good job, therefore I receive what I'm valued at. It's not that. You can't be passive about it. And then there's a whole section around just working while a woman, because we have things that we have to worry about that our male counterparts just don't, or where it's different. Things like safety and security, things like having children, right?
Mm-hmm.
There are things that we have to worry about that our male counterparts don't. And so it's all of those things, both what are the challenges and also how to overcome them.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Well,
it's a lot.
It's a lot, but it's a lot of good information. And so, the fixer and own your path sort of go hand in hand. So it's good to have both of them to get the picture, get the full picture, especially as a woman, just navigating our roles and our.
Yeah. Both of them contain a lot of real stories that happened, obviously different names and all of that, but they refer back to the same core projects. And so, reading both in tandem, or you could read one and then the other, but both of them refer back to the same projects and some of the same individuals.
Yeah.
And so there is some context setting that you get if you read both.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it sounds wonderful. Now, what about another book? Do you have another book in the works?
I do.
Yeah, tell us.
The next book coming, it's going to be in December.
Okay.
It's called Ride the Camel.
Nice.
It's a travel book not related to business at all. And it's just some of the crazy adventures I've had. I've always loved travel, and I use travel as a way to, get away from work because it's so crazy. And so it navigates. I would say nobody wants to hear that you went to Paris and had an amazing croissant sitting in front of the Eiffel Tower. Nobody wants to hear that. Everyone does that.
Everyone,
right? So it's the interesting stories that influenced your life, or where you learn something, or just an encounter that you never expected. So the first chapter is when I went to Bolivia, witnessed a ritual sacrifice, and became a vegetarian as a result.
Oh, wow.
So that is the opening chapter. So it is definitely something I learned, and I am still a vegetarian, many years later.
Yeah. Well, I think that makes a lot of sense. So, okay. So do you go in your travels that are in your book, Ride the Camel, are you in Paris? Are you in London? Or are you off the beaten path?
I'm mostly off the beaten path.
Okay.
I am in Bolivia, Nepal, Ecuador, some with the military, some with work, some on my own solo, some with my family, some with a sister-in-law.
Yeah.
I'm in, India with a friend up in Kashmir. It's kind of all Georgia, Azerbaijan. It's really a varied set of places. And in fact, I rarely would I speak about a place like Greece, for example, because a lot of people go to Greece. A lot of people go to France. I'm only going to talk about Greece or France if there's some really unique thing that happened there that was impactful to me, as a traveler.
Yeah. Yeah. And do you want to tell us a little bit about the title? Ride the Camel?
Ride the Camel. I was in Morocco.
Is that a direct order?
Yeah. Well, I was in Morocco, and it was a sabbatical, like a very mini sabbatical for me. I was deciding whether it was time to leave my company or not. I was burned out and just needed some time away to think. I went to Spain, and then I went to Morocco, and I did this little day trip out to Marrakesh. And, I'd seen the whole Marrakesh, and we were about to go back to the hotel, and the camel was included as part of the package.
Okay.
And I told the driver, I don't want to ride the camel. No camel. I don't know if the beasts are well cared for or not.
Right.
I don't want to ride the camel. I was also tired. I just said no camel. And I called my husband because I was sort of settling in for the car drive back to the hotel. And we stopped at the camel, the place where the camels were.
Right.
And I said, honey, I told the guy no camel. And he says, honey, you have to ride the camel. I'm like, I don't want to ride the camel. And he says, ride the camel for those of us who aren't there. Ride the camel.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah.
So I rode the camel, and I'm crying because it was a very impactful time for me, because that trip helped me make the decision to leave my company and to chart my new path.
Yeah.
And I didn't know what that path was, but it turned out to be writing books and writing these lessons for other people, both in the leadership sphere, but also even Ride the Camel is, it's still, you're getting lessons with all of these travels. And that trip just really opened my heart to, it was okay to leave. I'd been in my company for 25 years. I was loyal to that company.
Yeah,
I loved that company, but it was time to go. And that,
Yeah.
you know, riding that camel was kind of helped me see that it was time to go.
Yeah. I like the metaphor a lot.
Yeah.
It's very applicable and great title.
Yeah,
Your
yeah,
book.
yeah.
Well, thank you, Tauni, so much for joining me and on this lovely summer day in Atlanta.
Yeah, it's not
I guess
even-
it feels like summer. So.
No, thank you. Thank you for the conversation.
Yeah.
I really love talking to you.
Yeah,
So thank
good,
you.
good. Well, all of you listening or watching, please go out and grab a copy of The Fixer and own your path and look forward to Ride the Camel.
Thank you.
See you next time.
Thanks for joining us in the margins. You can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. Our social media handle is at Podcasting in the Margins on Instagram and Facebook. And please stay connected. Like, follow, and share our podcast. What you do can help our podcast be successful. In the Margins is produced and edited by Dawn Donahue. Our guest liaison is Kim Orendor, and we're supported with gratitude by W Brand Publishing, where your story matters. Thanks for joining us.